Ryu wasn't born a hero. He was just another name among millions, dragged into a nightmarish game crafted by the gods. The rules were cruel, the world merciless, but unlike others, Min was given something rare, 100 chances to survive. Again and again, he died. Again and again, he climbed the tower of death. Floor after floor, life after life, as countless players fell around him, he endured. On his 99th life, he finally reached the top, alone. No allies, no rivals, just him and the looming gate of the final boss. Victory felt within reach, but fate had one last joke to tell. The door wouldn't open. It needed 5 players. He was the last one left. And just like that, he died again. That death triggered his final reset, the 100th and last regression. A rune etched into his soul rewound time one last time, sending him all the way back to where it all began. Back to the ordinary world. Back to a time before the game even started. No powers, no buffs, no allies, just memories. Memories of endless suffering and every mistake he'd ever made. This time, Min wasn't going to let fate walk all over him. Now stuck in the body of his younger self, surrounded by classmates who once mocked and bullied him, he decided no more mercy, no more survival. Domination was the only goal. Suddenly, an eerie sound cuts through the night. A voice cold and amused echoes across the city. It mocks humanity, calls them fools. Sheep blissfully unaware of the slaughter that's coming. Confused and drawn in, crowds rush toward the source of the voice. Then, from the sky, she descends, glowing with divine radiance. A woman who looks more angel than anything human. She floats above them, eyes sharp with contempt, calling humans pitiful monkeys in a cage. Some believe it's a special effect. Others are too entranced by her beauty to care. But Ryu Min just watches, unimpressed. He's seen this exact scene 99 times before, and each time it's just as irritating. The so-called angel flashes a smug grin. She says how easy it is for humans to fall in love with their executioner, one man frustrated calls out. He laughs, accusing her of being part of some weird performance. He scoffs. What is this? Cosplay? Some floating hologram skit? That was his last mistake. The angel's eyes flare crimson, and in a blink, she severs his head clean off. His blood paints the crowd red. Panic, screams. The radiant lady of light now stands as judge, jury, and executioner. She warns them coldly. Speak out again, and your fate will be the same. Silence. Then she begins her announcement, the same one Min has heard over and over. You have all been chosen to participate in a game. It consists of 20 rounds, one each month. Your soul will be transported to another world. There you must complete a quest. Succeed, and you return. Fail, and you die. The rules are vague, the stakes terrifying. But then comes the real blow. Only half of them will survive. A wave of dread sweeps the crowd. The angel explains that only those aged 15 to 29 will be drafted. Older or younger, you're lucky, you stay behind. One elderly man cheers in celebration until a younger thug grabs his collar, annoyed by his joy. His boss, Young Men, quickly calms the situation, telling him to focus before things spiral out of control. Then the angel speaks again. 18 million players have been chosen, and now the game begins. Without warning, everyone is teleported, isolated in separate spaces. She says, create your avatar and choose wisely. You won't get another chance. Ryu doesn't hesitate. He chooses the same form he's used across 99 lives, the one he trusts the most. He calls it Black Scythe. Moments later, he's standing in a familiar field of grass. The same digital body, the same scenery. To him, it feels more real than his actual human form ever did. Slowly, the other players arrive, amazed at their new appearances. Some flex, others laugh, a few check themselves out like it's a fashion show. Ryu knows better. Looking flashy makes you a bigger target. The strong don't show off, they survive. Then he spots him. Young Min, the bully, reappearing in his usual over-the-top, ultra-muscular avatar. Same mistakes, same ego, different timeline. As the crowd enjoys their new forms, the angel returns once more. Her presence alone crushes the mood. She asks coldly, having fun? Fear sinks back into the air. The first round hasn't even started, but the real game has already begun. The crowd is growing uneasy. Someone finally asks aloud, why does it feel like there aren't even a million of us here? The angel's expression darkens. Without missing a beat, she snaps, this is only one of many locations. Countless others are gathered across the world, each with their own overseer. It's clear now, the scale of this game is massive. But before they can process that, she continues, laying out the basics. She says, close your eyes. Think of a status screen. Everyone obeys, and like magic, a digital little window appears in their minds. Ryu already knows what's waiting. 0 stats. Level 1. Just like the 99 times before. The angel confirms what he already knows. Everyone is a beginner. Weak, helpless, unarmed. She commands. Grow stronger, and if you somehow survive all 20 rounds, you'll earn a wish. Any wish that catches their attention. All of it. Then, she tells them to check their inventory. A mysterious item has already been delivered. A one-time use rune fragment. Usable only at level 1. Curious murmurs ripple through the crowd. Yong Min, ever the show-off, activates his rune immediately, gasping at the result. The angel smirks. She says confidently, "You'll all be satisfied, for now." And just like that, their first quest arrives. Objective: kill 100 goblins. Within seconds, thousands of goblins begin materializing. 10,000 monsters, 5,000 players, a massacre waiting to happen. The angel gives no further instructions, just a cold order: fight. The goblins, who had been merely glaring until then, finally stirred to life the moment the angel's voice echoed across the battlefield. Their screech ripped through the air like the cry of starving beasts, and in an instant, the horde charged forward, reckless, wild, and bloodthirsty. The people standing in the front lines froze. Fear tightened their throats as they watched dozens of goblins sprint toward them, each armed with jagged swords and bloodlust in their eyes. Even one of the men whispered nervously, "Even a dog running toward me would scare me, let alone a monster with a sword." But among the trembling crowd, one man moved. Ryu Min. He stepped forward, calm, steady, and fearless. His sudden movement drew every pair of eyes to him. Someone murmured, "Look at that guy. What's he doing all by himself?" Ryu didn't respond. He didn't even turn his head. He simply moved, his gaze sharp and unwavering. He wasn't doing this for attention. No, he wanted to make an impression, he thought. First impressions are important. If I want to avoid being bothered by annoying gnats later, I need to show them my strength right here. And more importantly, I need to catch the angel's attention. A faint smirk crossed his face and said, "For that, I'll need a little performance." Someone yelled from behind, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hey, over here! Hey, if you go closer, it's dangerous." But before anyone could stop him, Ryu's leg shot out like lightning. With one clean kick, he crushed the neck of the first goblin charging toward him. The creature fell with a lifeless scream, but Ryu didn't even flinch. He straightened up, eyes cold, and pulled a dagger from the corpse's belt. In one smooth motion, the dagger joined the dance of death, buried into a nearby goblin's neck, then ripped out of its back. Before that goblin even hit the ground, Ryu was already on the next one, moving like a storm. The sound of air leaving 2 goblin chests rang out. His movements were fluid, precise, like a predator that had done this countless times before. A true killer. Those watching could only stare, mouths agape, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Someone whispered, "Wow, he's amazing in battle." "Who is he?" "Dude, he's so strong," one said. "Black Scythe. His nickname's pretty badass too." Their awe was short-lived. The goblins were still coming. The rest of the horde reached the line of humans, and chaos erupted once again. One shouted, trying to sound brave, "We can do this. Goblins are just fodder in games, right? This isn't real life. It's just a virtual reality system." Encouraged by Ryu's massacre, many found new confidence. If he could slay hundreds alone, surely they could handle a few. But that illusion didn't last long. One cried, "Ah! That hurts!" The screams came instantly. Goblin daggers pierced human flesh, and fresh cries of pain echoed across the battlefield. Those who had boasted seconds ago now begged for mercy. The player said, "Please stop. It hurts so much. You monsters! My arm! My arm!" One by one, they fell. Some struck unconscious by clubs, others bleeding out from dagger wounds, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some tried to run but stumbled, falling into the dirt. Others simply crouched down, shaking, paralyzed by fear. The goblins didn't stop. They stabbed again and again, laughing in shrill tones as they drove their blades into helpless bodies. No one thought it was a game anymore. The pain, the blood, the smell of death, it was too real. The only thought left in anyone's mind was survival. Run, hide, live. Their instincts took over. Some ran, some froze, and a few trembling chose to fight. One shouted, swinging wildly, "Die, you monster bastards!" They managed to knock out a few goblins, their knuckles cracking, their eyes wild. But killing was another story. These were modern people, men and women who had never even killed a chicken before. How could they break a goblin's neck? Instead, they were the ones who collapsed, bleeding, gasping, dying, surrounded, outnumbered. outnumbered, trapped. The sound of goblin feet closing in on them echoed like drums of doom. High above, the angel watching from the sky, Brielle let out a soft, cruel giggle. "Kikike, this is amusing," she said. "The goblins are eating the humans alive." To her, this wasn't tragedy. It was entertainment. Watching humans fight for their lives was no different than watching stray animals brawl in the dirt, she said mockingly. Even if the opponent is a child, there's no chance of survival when dozens of them charge with daggers in hand. But then, her smile faltered, replaced with curiosity. Down below, one human still stood firm amidst the chaos. Dozens of goblins surrounded him, and yet he didn't fall. He cut through them like death itself, she wondered aloud. Who is that human? And what's up with his name? Black Scythe. Even as an angel, she couldn't see his information. No name, no stats, no rune. The system didn't allow it. She hissed. Such a dog-like system. They let us see their quest progress but block their personal data? Ridiculous, she frowned. She had always hated being assigned as a guide. Babysitting inferior humans wasn't exactly her idea of a divine mission, but now her lips curved upward in delight. The battlefield below was drenched in green and red blood. The humans screamed. The goblins laughed, and one man, one terrifying human, danced through death like a reaper. The scene was brutal, savage, beautiful. Brielle whispered, her eyes gleaming. "Kekeke, this is far more entertaining than I expected. Their despair, their screams, this is delightful." Then, spreading her wings wide, she shouted with manic glee, "Kill them! Kill them all, you worthless vermin! Fight each other like the insects you are!" Her laughter echoed through the blood-soaked air, and the slaughter raged on. As Brielle watched the chaos unfold beneath her, her golden eyes suddenly shifted. Something on the battlefield had caught her attention. Unlike the rest of the field, a sea of red, soaked with human blood, there was one area where the color was different. It gleamed green, goblin blood, and at the center of that green-stained ground stood one man, the player who bore the nickname Black Scythe. Her eyes widened slightly, inquiring, "That human again? He's still alive?" When she had first seen him emerge victorious from his initial skirmish, she had felt a brief spark of excitement. It was rare for a human to survive that long, much less dominate. At the time, she'd brushed it off, she thought. Maybe he'd just stumbled upon a powerful rune, something that gave him an edge, but it was just a fleeting notion, not worth her divine attention. She turned her gaze away back then, certain his stamina would soon run dry, and that he too would fall like all the others. And yet, there he was, still standing, still fighting, still killing. Her lips parted slightly in disbelief. That human was tearing through goblins like a storm of blades, cutting them down faster than they could screech. 70 of them had already fallen beneath his hands. Even Brielle, who could see the quest's live progress, felt an unfamiliar thrill. She murmured, leaning forward, eyes gleaming. This is his first battle, yet he fights like he's done this before. Ryu's movements were fluid and sharp, his expression calm and predatory. Each swing, each stab, precise, purposeful. Even the goblins, savage as they were, faltered for a moment under the sheer force of his aggression. Could a human on Earth truly have been a killer? The thought made her grin. Watching him stirred something in her. Amusement, interest, perhaps even admiration. Her mood, which had been sour minutes ago, suddenly lifted. She didn't know what fate awaited him, but for now, the show was getting better than she ever expected. Brielle's mouth curved into a satisfied smile. Below, a goblin screamed as it clawed at its face, both eyes gone. It fell to the ground, thrashing wildly. Ryu didn't waste a second. He dashed forward, leaping into the air. His dagger plunged deep into the creature's neck. Then a message appeared. "You have defeated a goblin! Experience points plus 4%. Gold plus 10. Level up. Quest progress. Goblin 75 out of 100. Remaining goblins until quest completion 25. Ryu ignored the messages flashing before his eyes. He rolled to the side instinctively, just in time. A goblin's dagger stabbed the ground where he'd been moments before. He sprang back up, body moving on instinct. One shrieked, lunging forward. Without hesitation, Ryu thrust his dagger straight into its chest. Then he turned, eyes scanning the field for his next target. His movements didn't stop, a relentless, flowing rhythm of death. Not a single heartbeat was wasted. Not a moment of carelessness allowed. His breathing was steady, his expression fierce. Soon, the battlefield around him grew quiet. The remaining goblins whimpered, backing away with trembling eyes. All the goblins nearby were dead. Ryu finally lowered his dagger slightly, exhaling. He murmured, "I can take a breather for a moment." He opened his status window and a soft light flickered across his face. Level 4, already. His fingers moved quickly across the interface and said, "For now, I'll go all in on agility." Each level up granted him 2 stat points. After allocating them, his agility, once just 3, had risen to 9. He thought, agility is the most important stat right now. Out of strength, intelligence, agility, and luck, agility mattered most. It boosted evasion, speed, attack rate, everything he needed to stay alive. Ryu turned his gaze toward the distance, about 30 meters away, where the rest of his group was still locked in chaotic battle. They cried, "Help me! Ah! Die, you monster bastards! Just die!" That side of the field was pure madness, red and green blood blending into one horrific mess. Meanwhile, on his side, Ryu stood alone among piles of goblin corpses, the air around him still and heavy. It was as if he existed in a different world altogether. He thought grimly, it's inevitable. They're facing goblins for the first time in their lives. He picked up a dagger from the ground, and without even aiming, threw it. It pierced a goblin's chest. The creature screamed and collapsed, green blood spraying across its comrades. Ryu shouted, "Come on! Aren't you coming to me?" But the goblins only stepped back, trembling. He sighed, shaking his head, saying, "If you're not coming, then I'm coming to you." He lunged forward, body blurring. Steel flashed. Green blood exploded in every direction. Moments later, silence fell. The last goblin before him dropped to its knees and fell. A column of translucent light descended upon Ryu, enveloping him completely. He stood within it, untouched, a protective barrier isolating him from the remaining monsters. He murmured, relief flickering across his face. The first round was easy. The appearance of the barrier meant one thing. He had survived. He had cleared the stage. Those who failed to do so within the time limit would disintegrate instantly. But not him. Not today. A shimmering gold notification materializes before him, declaring that he finished the objective in a record 10 minutes and 21 seconds, clinching the #1 spot. Knowing the top 3 placers get exclusive prizes, Ryu earns a standard tier rare weapon voucher, plus a unique first-place chest for his global ranking. He immediately opens the player map rewards, presented with an array of armaments. From the selection, he picks a stiletto, a starter-grade dagger, and discards the worthless blade he used during the fight. He opts to save the global reward for future use. Checking his status screen, he observes the other participants still grappling with the weak monsters. His gaze then falls on a new title he's acquired, the Final Chrononaut, one he never received in his previous 99 cycles. Intrigued, he activates the special mark he obtained and is granted the Chrono Revert sigil. As it starts to etch onto his form, the system alerts him that residual energy from the sigil's effect is already present on him, causing the engraving to fail. This doesn't shock Ryu. A successful engraving would have created a perpetual time loop exploit, a brokenly powerful glitch. The system then informs him that his 100 repeated cycles have unlocked a new title. Ryu understands that titles are a more advanced version of sigils in this world. Inspecting it, he finds it grants a single, full health resurrection upon death. He remembers that revival abilities are typically a priest-class skill, and even then they only bring someone back with a fraction of their health. His title is vastly superior, ensuring a complete recovery. Stunned by its power, Ryu quickly uses a system feature to conceal the title from view. Once he's finished, he scans the area, curious if anyone else has completed the quest. He spotted Youngman. The dude was still kicking. Ryu smirked a bit, thinking, guess he's gonna make it through this mess like before. As the number of humans nearly equals the remaining monsters, the celestial being, now bored, decides to summon a second, larger horde to prolong the turmoil. Meanwhile, the bodies of the fallen humans begin to dissolve into light, leaving their friends and family in utter despair. The new wave of 50,000 creatures overwhelms the struggling survivors. The required elimination count for qualification climbs closer until it finally finally exceeds 5,000, causing all the monsters to vanish. Those who didn't meet the quota fade away into nothingness, their pleas ignored. One man desperately screams at the divine overseer that he just needs one more kill, but the game's rules are absolute. Only half of the participants in each round are meant to proceed. The survivors, horrified by the disappearance of their comrades, are told by the overseer to be grateful for their lives and to prepare for a more difficult second round. Before they are released, the system distributes rewards and displays the leaderboard. Everyone receives 1,000 gold coins, usable once the in-game shop unlocks at level 10. Thanks to the public ranking, everyone now knows Ryu's name, just as he intended. His first-place finish grabs the celestial being's attention. She asks him how he became so powerful, suspecting he might have obtained a glitched sigil. Ryu sarcastically retorts, asking if she can't see which sigil he acquired. The lady immediately backtracks, claiming she knew all along to save face. Ryu then asks if he can pose a question, complaining that the reward for first place is insufficient for his efforts. This demand for a better prize enrages the divine being. She demands he repeat himself, and he does so without hesitation, further fueling her anger. She scowls, wondering how a mere human could be dissatisfied after clearing a horde of low-level monsters. In her fury, she considers obliterating him, but remembers her one-time kill authority was already wasted on another human. Regret washes over her, but is quickly replaced by a new, cunning idea. She asks Ryu if he truly requires a better reward, explaining that while the rules normally forbid it, she might make an exception. She tells the other survivors to wait, as she needs a private word with Ryu. Chaos erupts among the crowd as they wonder if negotiation is a valid tactic, with some growing jealous of his apparent luck. Ryu follows her deep into the forest, maintaining a safe gap. She notices and snaps at him to keep up, internally fuming at what she sees as disobedient pests, but she suppresses her rage, knowing she cannot directly interfere with the higher being's game system. A sly grin forms on her face as she concocts a deceitful plan. Once they pass a certain point, she plans to slay Ryu. She knows that slaying a human for personal reasons could cause some serious problems. After all, she doesn't have the authority to do so, and she might be punished for disrupting the game. To avoid any consequences, all she needs to do is make sure there are no witnesses. When she finally arrives at a safe spot, she turns around only to be met with an unexpected surprise. A fist comes crashing through her face, completely catching her off guard. The punch sends the angel crashing to the ground, and a strange golden liquid begins to bleed from her, making her more furious than ever. Furious and determined to crush Ryu, she tries to approach him, but to her shock, he vanishes without a trace. Ryu quietly sneaks up behind her, catching her completely off guard. With one hand gripping her wings, he uses the other to choke her, holding her in place. She screams at him to stop, but Ryu doesn't budge. One by one, he rips off her wings, showing her that escape is no longer an option. As Ryu finishes tearing them apart, he taunts her, asking if it hurts. The angel, clearly confused and enraged, asks him if he's lost his mind. Ryu, with a smirk, calmly explains that he knew she had a dagger hidden in her wings and was planning to kill him with it. The lady still refuses completely, arguing that none of this was ever her intention. But Ryu calmly calls her by the name Belle and tells her that lying to him won't get her anywhere. The angel instantly panics, wondering how a mere human could possibly know who she is. Right then, Ryu pulls out her weapon and scares the living daylights out of her. Desperate to survive, she tries bluffing her way out by threatening to use that head-exploding power of hers with just a flick of her finger. But Ryu shuts it down immediately, saying she's already used her killing move. This sends the angel into full-blown panic, and she starts scrambling for excuses, trying to strike some kind of deal. She attempts one last threat, claiming her friends won't let him walk away alive, but Ryu sees right through it. He tells her plain and clear that no one's coming to help because all her so-called angel friends are just self-absorbed narcissists who wouldn't lift a finger even if she dropped dead right there. She argues that making her kick the bucket would wouldn't do them any good, and says they'd just end up without an angel, which would make it impossible for them to return home. Hearing this, Ryu tells her that the system automatically sends the players back once the rewards are announced and doesn't need her approval for that to happen. She keeps trying to bargain and come up with some pretty lame excuses, saying she'll give him any information he wants while begging for just one more chance to see another day. But Ryu doesn't look convinced at all and tells her he already knows everything about the game, explaining that angels like her are nothing more than chess pieces placed to guide the players and serve no other purpose. Ryu shows her no mercy and drives his blade straight through her, taking her down for good. After he finishes off the angel, the system notifies him that he's officially the first person to ever eliminate an angel and rewards him with the title of the first angel slayer. On top of that, Ryu receives the angel blood along with the rune of slaughter. Turns out this isn't his first time pulling something like this off, and just like before, he's once again the very first to take down an angel. The rune gets engraved directly into his body, and his newly earned title now doubles his stats whenever he's up against an enemy from the Holy Order. Back in his previous regressions, he only found out about these rewards during the 13th round while battling the angels. And since they're meant for just one person, the system designed them to be as unique as possible. Besides the double stat buff from the title, he also gains the rune's bonus, which increases his stats by 1% every time he kills an enemy, stacking up to 100%. However, this effect completely resets once the next round begins. Ryu smirks while holding a golden item, the angel's blood, which turns out to be the sole reason he went after the angel in the first place. Since this item lets a player choose Grim Reaper as their profession, professions are something every player gets access to once they hit level 10 and above, with 30 different kinds available overall, and there are several ways for someone to unlock one. One way to gain a profession is by obtaining a specific item, either through a hunt or by meeting certain requirements. But some professions fall under the unique class category, meaning they belong to just a single person, and as expected, these professions are in a completely different league compared to the rest. Ryu then checks the reward he got from the world map and decides to go with the experience boost for the next round, knowing that the most important thing right now is to reach level 10, so he can finally enter a profession. He's fully aware that this is his last regression, which means he has to become the strongest version of himself by making use of everything he can possibly get his hands on. Right then, the round comes to an end, and every living soul gets returned to their original dimension. People slowly start waking up on Earth as their souls return, confused and wondering what just happened. For most of them, it all feels like a strange dream, and when they look around, they notice that their bodies had collapsed the moment they were pulled into that other dimension. They check the time and realize that the amount of time that passed in their dream matches exactly with the real world, which only makes things more unsettling. Their heads feel heavy, and their limbs ache with soreness. Young Min and his friends glance around, noticing that some people are still lying motionless, not yet waking up from whatever dream they were trapped in. The humans begin talking among themselves, slowly confirming that it wasn't just a dream after all, and that they'll definitely be pulled back in when the next round begins. They rush to wake up their friends, who are still passed out, but the moment they check on them, they realize the bodies are ice cold and not even breathing, confirming that these people have actually kicked the bucket. It's right then that the brutal truth hits everyone. This whole half the people will survive thing wasn't some twisted joke, and those who didn't make it really are gone for good. Panic spreads like wildfire, and even the bully young Min starts trembling, shaken to his core. The sick piece of trash genuinely feels glad that rich or poor, everyone now stands on an even playing field in this new world. So he casually tells the guy having a panic attack to chill out and just live a little. He adds that the world has always been unfair anyway, and brings the freaked out kid back to reality with his casual vibe check. He tells young Min that while his life might not be worth much, he still has goals he wants to chase. But the crazy guy ignores him and looks for someone he cannot seem to find. He wonders where Ryu disappeared to after getting knocked out and quietly chuckles to himself, thinking a weak little wimp like him probably croaked in a ditch somewhere without anyone noticing. Just then, his attention is stolen by a guy decked out in armor who is just minding his own business and staring into the air. The crackhead quickly realizes he can also access the system to check his own stats, and seeing his goons also shocked when they confirm it for themselves. It takes the gang a second to fully process that they can also open their own status screens and even even view the items they get in real life, though no player can ever peek at someone else's. Yong-min decides to test it out by casually picking up a rock and crushing it effortlessly with one hand. Watching it crumble into powder from his sheer crushing power, the snake-eyed guy grins like a complete idiot at his newfound strength. The next day, news about the event spreads like wildfire, and it quickly becomes common knowledge that an entire crowd of citizens had fallen unconscious after a mysterious lady descended from the sky like a UFO, with rumors flying around that she has the power to pop heads like balloons or send people straight into a coma. Watching the experts scramble to interpret the situation on his phone, Ryu figures that full-on chaos will break loose once they find out that half the unconscious players are going to pass away from heart attacks soon, including a few famous celebrities. But he knows the real game begins when the police discover that the survivors have turned into players with special powers, though their low stats will not be much of a problem in the beginning. At the later stages, they will become way too powerful for even the military to handle properly. That is where Ryu plans to come in and shut them down before they get too drunk on their powers and end up destroying Earth long before the final round even begins. He has already decided that he will achieve it by dominating with his own overwhelming strength. However, this time he knows he will have to play it smart and rally the top 4 players to his side if he wants to survive the final round. Though there is something much more important he needs to take care of first. Back at his apartment, Ryu goes into the kitchen and feels bad that his little brother ate a single cup of ramen for dinner like always. Ryu quietly opens the door and peeks inside, careful not to wake the little guy up, and he feels relieved that Juan can finally sleep peacefully, even without his big brother around. After all, despite his towering height, the walking beanpole is still just a 7th grader living alone with his brother ever since their parents passed away in a car crash. Pressing down on the bandage wrapped around one's bruised hand, a wave of regret and pain crashes over Ryu's heart. Without wasting a second, he flips the lights on and tells his little brother they are leaving right now. One groggy asks why he's making him get up so early, but our big brother rips the blanket off and orders him to get his lazy butt up and get changed, because they have something important to take care of that he will explain on the way out. Little bro grumbles that if it is just another one of Ryu's random morning walks, he is definitely not interested. But Ryu suddenly drops his voice into a serious tone and lets him know that some serious stuff is about to go down. So now is not the time to be sleeping in. His little brother frowns and asks if something happened during the New Year's celebration Ryu went to, and our guy says he will explain everything once they are moving. As the brothers head down a quiet alley, his little brother wonders what could be making his big brother act so tense and serious out of nowhere. That is when Ryu tells him to check the news, since a whole lot happened while he was snoring away. And Ryu-wan's jaw drops when he sees the Looney Tunes-style headlines about some angel that kidnapped a bunch of young people into another world, with Ryu finally revealing that he was one of those poor souls and barely made it back alive after clearing the first mission. His little brother instantly starts panicking and demands to know if he is really all right, especially because after their parents crash, Ryu is the only family he has left in this world. He remembers how completely broken he felt back then, but somehow his big brother always stood strong and made it feel like their parents were still with them even now. However, there is a limit to how much anyone can take, and even his brother might not be able to handle something as traumatic as suddenly being forced to hunt 100 monsters. Already knowing exactly what his little brother is thinking, Ryu calmly reassures him that the stat system makes players stronger, so even a guy built like a stick of spaghetti like him is going to be fine. Seeing that Ryu-wan is still not buying it, Ryu-min tells him all those worries will disappear when he watches him fight, and that he just needs to follow along and trust him for now. But little brother crosses his arms and stands firm, refusing to move an inch until Ryu spills whatever it is that he has been keeping from him the whole time. Glancing at the nasty bruise on one's hand, Ryu's face hardens again as he finally speaks up and name drops the jerk who has been bullying Ryu-wan all this time, causing the poor kid to immediately start sweating bullets. Hearing his bully's name come from Ryu, the little brother feels completely shocked that he already knows about his situation. He turns to his brother and asks if he really knew everything from the beginning. The guilt hits him like a truck because he tries so hard to keep it hidden, not wanting to dump more problems onto Ryu when he already has enough to deal with. But deep down, Ryu feels the need to apologize to his little brother, since he never truly noticed the pain one had been carrying all this time. Back Back in his first life, Ryu ended up finding out in the worst way possible. He was lying down for a nap when one casually mentioned that he was stepping out for a walk. Sometime later, Ryu picked up a call in a grumpy mood, not expecting anything serious, but the woman on the other end gave him a brutally cruel wake-up call when she told him she needed him to come to the hospital. It turns out that Ryu got beaten so badly by his bully that night that he ended up losing his vision completely. Ryu felt like a pathetic weakling in that moment, and the weight of his own helplessness slammed into him like a truck. That's exactly why, in this life, he wants to make sure his little brother never has to go through something like that ever again. At the same time, in a rundown alley, 2 slams a nerd into the wall with a hard kick and reminds him that he was supposed to show up with 20,001. He starts yelling as the nerd just lies there like a lifeless NPC. The fat pig keeps kicking him over and over again, and even his own grunts start looking surprised at how much punishment he's dishing out. As the guys stand there, frozen by his ruthless attitude, Fatty starts whining that there's no way he's getting a bike big enough to fit his massive dump truck without the nerd's money. He turns to one of his lackeys and asks who else they can squeeze cash from. They start thinking it over until Forehead Guy pipes up and tells him to call the tall toothpick with the curly hair. Just the thought of Juan's punchable face makes 2 grin, and he casually shares that his plan for ringing in the new year was to start it off by beating that kid down. While his grunts throw out the genius idea of getting money from Juan, Fatty quickly reminds them that the kid is basically a homeless bum and that every single time he beat him up, the shack dweller never had even a penny to his name. The moment Fatty brings up that Ryu lives with his brother, his eyes immediately lock onto a pair of visitors, and to his delight, it's none other than his favorite punching bag along with our big brother. That sight alone makes the basketball-shaped menace and his lackey grin wide. And he jokes that usually the devil shows up when someone says his name, but he got a gift instead. Right after that, Grease Lord goes full psycho and curses at Juan, which makes him scared and begins shaking as he quickly apologizes. But Ryu doesn't flinch and shoots Fatty a cold stare that says his days are officially numbered. 2 just smirks, thinking all one did was hand-deliver him a brand-new punching bag, and then asks who exactly he dragged along to come save his sorry self. Before the boy can even respond, the big bad brother steps up and introduces himself, which makes Fatty grin wide as he tells Juan that he really messed up this time, and now his brother's about to get stitches for his snitch. But then Fatty pauses for a second and decides to send his boys in first to see just how good this guy really is. The first dude almost loses his soul, laughing when he sees how short Ryu is. But Ryu answers that with a solid punch straight to his ugly mug, dropping him to the ground with a loud, satisfying thud. That move stuns Budget Justin Bieber so badly that he instantly throws his fist with everything he's got, tearing through the air at full speed. But Ryu smoothly dodges with a clean side deep. He hits the guy so hard that the poor dude flies into a distant pile of boxes, crying out for his mom like a baby. At the same time, Baldy and 2's last goon drop to the ground, curled up and shaking in pain from just a single hit each. Watching all this go down, the fat boy starts trembling and barely holds it together as he tries to cope that one's brother must have just picked up a bit of boxing somewhere. Trying to act unfazed, Fatty scoffs that there is no chance a guy built like a noodle can throw punches strong enough to actually hurt him. So he approaches him with full confidence, walking like a JoJo villain while towering over our hero. He smugly points out that those amateur boxing lessons probably forgot to mention how brutal a height difference can be in a fight. But Ryu just laughs at the oversized cutting board and asks if this guy even watches the news. Seeing Ryu smile to himself in that situation ticks Fatty off, and he throws his fist, ready to teach him a painful lesson. But Ryu easily dodges the jab and makes the oversized bulldog stumble around, trying to land a single hit, turning every dodge into a stylish move. Fatty's heart starts pounding like crazy, and he nearly gives himself a heart attack for moving around too much, as he wonders why none of his hits land. Fed up with Big Smoke's tantrum, Ryu ends the show by knocking 2 out cold with one brutally satisfying punch, then tells him straight that he wouldn't have dared to step up if he actually watched the news. As the big guy struggles to stay conscious, he charges right back at Ryu, only to get his butt handed to him a second time. This time, Ryu pulls a smooth move and vanishes like Naruto, appearing right behind the fat boy to land a clean jab straight into his oversized double chin. Clutching his mouth from the raw sting, the big guy starts cursing at our hero until he nearly loses it when he he notices a tooth has gone missing from that punch. This sight fires him up even worse than a fat Fortnite kid losing a match, and he launches a wild, hopeless attempt to take out our boy. As always, Ryu shows zero mercy and starts pounding that watermelon-sized head with so many punches that 2 looks like he might fall over any second. His pathetic lackey watch from a distance, too scared to even breathe properly as they practically wet their pants. Meanwhile, the budget bully gets furious and convinces himself that one's brother only keeps winning because he keeps hitting first, thinking that if he could land just one greasy punch, the guy built like a toothpick would go flying across the room. That, he tries his best one-punch man move and throws everything he has into dropping our hero with one strike. But Ryu calmly uses his own momentum against him and sends the human football flying straight into the goal. As the big guy crawls across the ground like an oversized caterpillar, our Ryu stands over him and casually asks how it feels to finally experience the kind of pain he always loved dishing out, while flashes of regret from watching one get beaten and broken in every past life cross his mind. But 2 suddenly switches up his act and starts begging for mercy, shaking on the ground just like the same kids he had bullied before. Still, Ryu calmly steps closer and reaches out to grab his hand, while the big guy shuts his eyes and braces himself for the worst. After a few sweet moments of suspense, Ryu flashes a wide grin and tells him straight up that the biggest mistake he ever made wasn't even being born. It was daring to bully one. Right after that, 2 needs a second to process the loud snap echoing in his ears, only to realize it's the sound of his own hand being twisted into something that looks like broccoli. Ryu doesn't even slow down as he grabs the other hand too, and the sharp noise of bone cracking grows so brutal that even the gang of goons runs away, terrified of the madness. Being the timid soul he is, one quickly looks away while his brother keeps going, making absolutely sure that the so-called bully understands exactly what will happen if he ever thinks about messing around again. However, he flashes a wide grin at the begging bully for even thinking he might be gullible, and makes it clear that he would never trust scum like him. So he ensures that 2 will never again lay his filthy hands on another innocent kid by doing a cruel things. Later, the little brother asks Ryu how he is suddenly pulling off such insane moves and wonders if he has been secretly training for years without telling anyone. Ryu then explains that it's already been in the news that a few people have been selected as players who can use abilities from the other world even while living on Earth. He casually shows one of his daggers, instantly making his brother fanboy over it like it's a legendary Counter-Strike knife skin. Ryu also shares that the crazy moves he pulled off during the fight are thanks to his boosted speed stat, which easily puts him above even world-class athletes, though he quickly stops talking as Ryu 1 starts getting too curious and throwing out more questions. Ryu simply shrugs it off, remembering how the last time he shared too much. It ended with one getting kidnapped by another player, and even though he made it out unharmed, our big brother has no intention of letting him go through anything else painful ever again. Suddenly, he turns his head when an earth-shattering rumble comes from Ryu Won's stomach, and Ryu quickly offers to take him to the convenience store for a special breakfast to celebrate what had been a pretty fine and non-violent day. Inside the store, Ryu Won asks what might be the most genuinely depressing question ever as he looks around and sadly wonders where his brother is even going when the cup of ramen is already right in front. Our big brother tells him to hang on for a bit as he goes to withdraw most of his life savings in one shot, reassuring one not to worry about it. He then casually tells his little brother that he can pick out anything he wants from the expensive food aisle. Ryu Won hesitates for a second, thinking they might run out of money before New Year's, but he folds right away and grabs a box of chicken noogies without a second thought. His whole face lights up as he says he's always wanted to try them, and seeing that precious smile makes Ryu so happy that he promises to take him to a restaurant next time so he can finally try beef. Big brother comes back, slams a pen down on the table, and stuns one by announcing that he spent almost all his life savings buying lottery tickets. Sweat bullets roll down Ryu Won's face as he nervously asks Ryu exactly how much he he blew on them, only for Ryu to casually reveal he emptied his whole account, sending Ryu Wan into a full-on panic attack. Ryu doesn't waste a second and starts scribbling furiously, and Ryu Wan, looking over, notices something strange happening and asks why he wrote the same number on all 20 tickets. With a cheeky grin stretched across his face, our Ryu proudly tells him that it's his lucky number. Back in their apartment, Ryu Wan sits there, dreading every second as he watches the lotto announcers slowly reveal the winning numbers. He practically starts chewing on his nails, thinking about the fancy dinner they could have enjoyed instead of blowing all that money. But his worry starts fading fast as the announcers call out the lucky numbers. He stares at the screen, completely stunned as he realizes they match perfectly with the numbers Ryu had written down. And the announcer even says they are the #1 winner. Feeling like he might be stuck in some crazy dream, he gets all tear-eyed and asks his brother to pinch his cheek just to make sure it's real. Our big brother just teases him to stop panicking like a baby and flashes a wide grin while telling him it's all real and that they are now rich beyond belief. Ryu casually tells the little brother to calm down a bit and stop going crazy, or else they'll disturb the neighbors, while silently laughing to himself as he remembers how he once screamed like a little girl the first time he lucky guessed the winning numbers. But now, with everything happening and the economy getting wrecked by players, making a fortune feels like a total piece of cake. After that, Ryu strolls into the bank without a care and casually tells the clerk that he is the top winner and wants to claim his prize. The clerk congratulates him while quietly thinking that the first place winner looks suspiciously young, almost like a regular student. He asks Ryu where he bought his tickets from, and the moment he hears the branch number, the guy starts panicking because he remembers a man once mentioning that over 100 winning tickets came from a single store. The clerk instantly realizes this could only mean that one person bought them all, and he also remembers the man telling him to call the director immediately if the top winner ever shows up. So he politely tells Ryu to wait for a moment, and before long, the director himself shows up. The old man introduces himself with a smile that looks a little too eager, almost like he's ready to pick Ryu's pockets, but he still congratulates him and personally escorts him upstairs to his office. Inside the office, his secretary immediately bows deeply to the two of them, clearly thinking the director has brought his own son along. However, the director quickly corrects her, saying that Ryu is actually a very special guest and she should be extra nice to him today. The woman instantly catches on that this must be the living legend who scored 100 winning tickets and tries her best not to completely lose it. As she shakily tries to suck up to him, Ryu just waves her off and tells her to stop wasting time and bring him his dough. He casually hands over the stack of tickets, and her brain practically short-circuits when she notices the exact same number printed on every single one. After she finishes checking and confirms that all of them are authentic, Ryu gets straight to the point and asks her for the total amount. It turns out that after losing about a third of his winnings to taxes, he still pockets a massive 15 billion won. So, he decides to buy himself a small studio apartment and starts doing some trading in his spare time, especially since he knows for a fact that Bitcoin is about to shoot straight to the moon. Later, back at their apartment, Ryo surprises his little brother with a place that looks like something straight out of his dreams, but the little brother immediately asks why he doesn't just go ahead and buy it outright instead of renting, especially now that he's practically swimming in cash. Ryu proudly reveals that they are actually broke again because he dumped all their winnings straight into crypto, causing Ryu Won's brain to pretty much vaporize into dust on the spot. Big Brother casually places a hand on his shoulder and reassures him that he knows exactly what he's doing, telling him to calm down since the old man from his dreams also gave him the lucky numbers for the next 4 rounds of the lotto. Hearing that, Ryu Won starts shaking men like a soda can and screams at him to never forget the numbers. Not that Ryu could even if he wanted to, after experiencing the same boring nonsense a million times over. Putting that aside, Ryu tells him to hurry up and start packing because they are moving into the new place immediately. Meanwhile, on the other side, we catch a glimpse of a player smashing a concrete wall like he's the Hulk, while the man proudly thinks there is no one smarter than him for putting every single one of his points into strength. Though he is a little different from others, since he possesses the rune of power, which doubles a player's strength and gives him the kind of confidence where he believes he could probably send both Mike Tyson and Jake Paul home crying. Clenching his monstrous fists tightly, he decides that it is finally time to put those big big guns of his to the test once and for all. He shows up at our hero's old place and starts hammering on the door, yelling at the top of his lungs for Ryu to stop hiding like a scared little wuss. When he gets no response, he wonders if the guy died in a ditch somewhere. And just thinking about the smug, condescending look Ryu once gave him makes his blood boil even more. He keeps bashing the door like a lunatic, ready to break it down and pummel him, but finally stops when it slowly starts to click that maybe Ryu simply isn't home. The madman then shouts that if he hears even the slightest footstep from inside, he is going to bust the door down like a full-blown SWAT raid. Right at that moment, an old man appears and asks him what in the world he is doing standing outside someone else's home. But the crazy guy gives zero respect and rudely tells the old geyser to shove off, since it's not like he owns the palace or anything. The old man, unimpressed, easily moss him by saying he actually is the landlord, and then politely asks if he happens to be there to meet a friend. After spending a few seconds forcing his last two brain cells to cooperate, the madman pretends to be Ryu's old buddy and asks the landlord if he can open the door because he's worried sick about his dear friend whom he hasn't seen in forever. However, the old man ends up leaving him standing there completely dumbfounded as he explains that the student who used to live there moved out a few days ago without telling anyone where he went, pissing young men off beyond belief. Meanwhile, back at the new apartment, Ryu Wan is completely awed by all the fancy services their luxury place offers and ends up acting like a total clown who just stumbled out of some backwater village. The moment they step inside their massive new room, he immediately asks his brother how much this giant apartment, clearly too big for just the two of them, actually costs. And Ryu casually drops that the rent is a measly 22 million yen per month. One soul nearly leaves his body on the spot as he remembers how he lost his mind over a measly 5,001 box of chicken nuggets. He quickly advises Ryu not to splurge like a madman and to find somewhere cheaper, but our big brother points out that they seriously need the top-tier security this place offers, especially because players end up falling into a deep sleep on the first of every month, which leaves them completely helpless against anything from natural disasters to hitmen sent by their enemies. Ryu knows very well from hard-earned experience that all the strength in the other world means nothing when you are Kameyomaos in real life. After laying it all out, he asks his brother how he likes the apartment, and one is honestly pretty happy with it, though his smile quickly fades as he ends up apologizing to Ryu for making him waste time and energy on his sorry self when he already has enough threats to juggle in the other world. Our big brother laughs it off, gives him a hearty slap on the back, and asks the cheeky little bugger if he really thinks he won't come back after the next round. After that, he tells his little bro to relax for once and enjoy the five-star restaurant right there in their building while he goes off to check his messages. He scoffs at all the angry rants and rage messages sent by young men, but he ignores the madman without a second thought because no matter how loud he barks, Ryu is practically untouchable now as Black Scythe. The next day, Ryu steps out of his room and finds his little brother all packed up and ready to head out somewhere. Ryu Wan cheerily tells him that he's going to pick up some rice cakes he ordered, which completely throws Ryu off because his little brother never did anything like this in even one of the 99 lives he remembers. Curious, he asks what the occasion is, and Ryu Wan explains that he wants to be nice to the neighbors since they just moved in. Thinking it's a pretty good tradition, Ryu feels proud of the little guy and suggests they go together just to be safe, though Ryu Wan tries to convince him to sit back and relax since he deserves it. At the first neighbor's door, they ring the bell, and one excitedly tells the sweet old lady on the speaker that he's here to drop off some rice cakes. The old woman warmly appreciates the gesture and wishes the brothers a very nice day. After that, they move on to visit the other flats one by one until they finally arrive at the very last one. On the way, Ryu tells his brother that everyone living in the building has a private penthouse, so they are either ultra-wealthy business owners or celebrities. Ryu Wan rings the last doorbell, but it seems like the owner is out, so they turn around to leave when both brothers are completely stunned to see a gorgeous woman in a golden dress walking right toward them, none other than the famous actress Seo Arin. Ryu Wan finds himself completely enchanted by her radiant beauty, while Ryu stays completely unfazed, like the Sigma he is. As they attempt to hand her the cakes, her bodyguard suddenly steps in and starts interrogating the brothers to figure out if they happen to be stalkers. Ryu shuts down his obnoxious attitude with a cold glare and coolly explains that he is no EIS from the streets, saying he just moved in recently and came over to drop off a housewarming gift. Hearing this, the bodyguard finally relaxes and promptly shoots their offer down, since pretty ladies like Aaron are not allowed to mess up their figure with sweets. After swinging the door open to their apartment, he politely asks the lady to head right in, although she glances back at the brothers as if apologizing for her bodyguard's terrible manners. Ryu remains unimpressed and tells his brother that he is not a fan of their overall attitude and suggests he should just ignore them from this point on. But Ryu Wan ends up becoming like a crazy fan and starts fangirling so hard that Ryu gets completely confused about what has him so worked up. The tall toothpick grabs his big brother and starts shaking him like crazy, absolutely flabbergasted that he does not even know what a legend the celebrity Seo Aaron really is. Meanwhile, Seo Aaron keeps reading headline after headline that says over half of the celebrities targeted in the other world have either been offed or Yunail alive themselves, which makes her worry deeply about what in the world might end up happening to her. Right then, she receives a message from a friend who tells her that one of their seniors passed away just a while ago and asks if she is going to come to the funeral the next day. With that, she tunes out of her phone for a second and starts thinking that without her rune, she would have no doubt been just another casualty in the news. The lady then feels bad for ever being arrogant enough to think she was special enough to even get mentioned on a headline, since she is just an up-and-coming one-hit wonder whose success and even her studio apartment are all sponsored by her company. Seeing her all stressed out, her bodyguard gently asks her what is weighing on her mind. And when she says it is nothing big, the man tells her to freely talk to him about anything at all, no matter what it is. Seo Aaron finally admits that she is worried sick about how she is supposed to survive the next round in a world where celebrities are dropping like Tesla stock. So he calmly tells her to relax her melons because he will stay by her side every single step of the way. The bodyguard gently points out that she has been overthinking way too much lately and tells her to trust him a little more. So she ends up giving him a precious smile as she remembers how suspicious she had been of him when the company first assigned him as her caretaker. But he had won her trust almost instantly, since he pretty much saved her from getting eliminated right in the very first round. The bodyguard reassures her that he will always be there for her, which lights her up on the inside. So she jokes that the rice cakes their neighbors brought were looking mighty scrumptious. But he tells her she is already getting flabby and really cannot afford to put on more weight. Even so, she says it was not very nice to turn them down so rudely, since it is rare these days to see people still following old traditions. But the bodyguard tells her that pleasantries are pointless because everyone nowadays is just nice to get a favor back like parasites. That does not really convince Aaron, though, since she keeps remembering how cute and innocent they had looked. She even comments that one of them definitely looked older than 15 and wonders aloud if they might be a player too, thinking it is honestly amazing how kids these days can massacre 100 goblins and then just move on with their lives like nothing ever happened. The bodyguard laughs at her and says that anybody should be able to take out 100 goblins, but Seo Aaron insists that no average person could ever be that talented at fighting unless they were a bodyguard like him, and even then he had still been no match at all for the eerily scary player called Black Scythe. Seeing him go on a murder spree makes her feel genuinely bad for the goblins, and she thinks it is not even far-fetched to believe he might actually be a real-life hitman. With players like him basically guaranteed to survive the next round, Seo Aaron cannot help but worry if a weak little girl like her will even manage to make it out of the second one alive. The next day, while Ryu Wan cleans up the apartment like the good boy he is, Ryu finally gets back home and tells him that he did not pull as much money from the fourth round of the lottery compared to the last time. When little brother asks how they reacted about him winning so many times in a row, Ryu says he gave them the classic excuse that some old man tells him the winning numbers in his dreams. He then asks if Ryu is still dumping all his savings into Bitcoin, and Ryu proudly brags that it has more than doubled by now. The little brother warns him not to get greedy and says it is about time they cash out. But Ryu tells him not to worry his little head because he has got everything under control, and they head over to the dining hall to feast on the 5-star grub like a Mexican man feasts on tacos. A few more days fly by, and it is 5 minutes until the first day of the next month. Ryu Wan holds on to his big brother's hand real tight and tells him that no matter what happens, he has to come back to him. Ryu reminds him of how badly he had crushed his bully before and pats his little brother on the head, saying there is no need to be so worried. He tells him to just sleep since they will wake up again once the sun is shining. With that, he bids his brother farewell, and Black Scythe gets summoned to the other world, along with all the other players. Everyone quickly grows confused about where they are since it looks completely different from the first round, and one of them shouts out the moment he spots the top ranker walking straight through the crowd with that overwhelming aura. Black Scythe notices right away that everyone is keeping a bit of distance from him, and just as he starts wondering when the angel will show up, a new one appears, who barely looks any different and casually asks if everyone has already arrived. Picking up on the murmurs, she cheerfully explains that the angel from the first round is currently on vacation after her little accident. Flashing a grin nastier than the devil himself, she tells them not to worry because they are all now in her very good hands. With that, the angel spreads her radiant wings and announces the quest for the second round. Quest windows float down in front of every player, each one showing the mission to select a zone representative within the next 3 hours. Everyone stares at the quest window, caught off guard and unsure how to react, since many of them expected to be thrown into a fight against monsters. One of the players remarks that the total number of survivors will stay exactly the same after the quest, which spreads a wave of excitement through the group. The majestic angel notices their confused reactions and decides to explain the nature of the current round. She confirms what they're already starting to suspect, that there won't be any battles this time, and instead tells them they'll need to choose a leader from among themselves. The angel tempts them with the promise that the zone representative will gain the authority to command others to obey their every word, whether that means ending their own lives or crawling around like worms. She seems genuinely thrilled by the sheer weight of such power, while the others exchange confused looks, not sure how to feel about her excitement. Bathed in sunlight that wraps around her like an aura, she announces that after 3 hours pass, everyone will be allowed to cast their vote, and all they need to do is select a leader. A blue-haired player speaks up and asks if there's any hidden condition they should know about, but the angel easily puts his worries to rest by confirming that nothing else is involved. She assures them that once they cast their vote, they'll all be sent home, openly calling it a simple and relaxing rest round. The players break into cheers, relieved that this time no one has to die, with some laughing about how easy the round seems. Meanwhile, Yong Min clenches his teeth in frustration, already fired up and ready to start swinging. One of his lackeys tries to calm him down, but the thug keeps ranting that he dumped all his points into strength and now won't even get a chance to put that power to use, which only makes him angrier. Ryu catches their conversation from nearby and quickly figures out that Yong Min must have picked up the strength rune. He casually remarks to himself that all of this is playing out just like canon, and nothing so far has actually changed. On top of that, he hints that while everyone is going to argue over who deserves their vote, there's something much more important that nobody is paying attention to yet. Ryu thinks to himself that if there are main missions, then there must be side missions. As well as he walks into the forest, the second round's hidden side quest is revealed to be a class selection mission. Ryu brandishes his knife as he sets his goal to reach level 10 as fast as possible. He spots the hobgoblin in the distance and makes short work of it. His skill increases both his experience points and the rewards he receives, which reassures him that choosing to hunt was the right call. He notes that if there's one goblin nearby, there are bound to be more hiding just out of sight. And right then, he spots several pairs of sinister eyes glowing in the bushes. Ryu lets out a small grin as he gets ready to take on the approaching horde. He cuts through them with ease, and the system promptly notifies him that he has leveled up. Opening his abilities window, Ryu sees that he has reached level 9. Though the idea of boosting strength is tempting, he chooses to allocate all his points to agility instead. He tells himself that raw power is useless if the enemy manages to land a fatal blow first. Ryu figures that every skill has its own value, and since the Grim Reaper class he's aiming for uses both physical and magical attacks, It makes the most sense to balance out all his stats evenly. Suddenly, he stiffens as he senses another presence nearby. Realizing too late that he had been so caught up in the fight, he didn't notice them earlier. He raises his sword, pointing it directly ahead, and warns whoever is hiding to come out now or be ready to suffer the consequences, making it clear they'll pay with their lives if they choose wrong. From behind a tree, a stunning girl steps out of the rustling bushes, and Min blinks in surprise when he sees that his stalker turns out to be none other than the famous Coin. She apologizes for following him, and before he can react, another person emerges behind her. The second figure also apologizes and quickly tries to explain that they never meant any harm and that there's no reason for him to stay angry. Ryu recognizes the man instantly as the bodyguard, who is one of Plus Ma Kyung-rak's most loyal underlings. Ma Kyung-rak is a major player known by the name Heavenly Demon, and Ryu plans to recruit him later down the line, though he's also after a priest connected to Heavenly Demon for something important in the 20th round. Running into him this early throws Ryu off, and he can't help but wonder what he's doing with a celebrity like Eren. After thinking it through, he figures the man must be the same bodyguard who was assigned to her, probably under Ma Kyung-rak's orders. Ryu demands to know how long they've been following him, clearly frustrated that the future seems to be shifting in unexpected ways. SEO Eren admits they've been tailing him since the beginning and apologizes again if they stepped out of line. When he presses further, she suddenly blurts out that she has a proposal. Since he breezed through the first round, she wants to form a gang with him. Ryu laughs at her request and points out that a deal only works when she actually has something worth offering in return. Ryu replies with an icy tone that he has no use for either of them and feels perfectly fine handling things on his own, so they should rethink this and return to the clearing. Ryu turns and walks further into the forest, repeating with a cold edge that he doesn't need them. The bodyguard mutters about Ryu's annoyingly smug attitude, while Eren drops to her knees, overwhelmed just by being in his presence. She declares without hesitation that his frontline status is clearly not for show and radiates raw dominance, but the bodyguard stays completely unimpressed by any of it. Eren feels crushed that her charm had no effect. Yet the bodyguard takes the chance to scold her, saying he already warned her that people like him never fit well in a group. He continues tearing into her for wasting valuable time chasing after someone so obviously unwilling to join. Eren never expected to run into monsters in such a peaceful-looking stage, and now decides to hunt them down with her bodyguard by her side. Deep in the forest, a hobgoblin scans the area in panic, completely unaware of men as he drops in from above with a silent strike straight out of Assassin's Creed. Ryu still fumes over the idea of teaming up, convinced it would only drag him down, all while casually sending the goblin into an eternal nap. The system pops up with an update on his kill count, but the brief moment of peace ends quickly as snarling hyena-like creatures begin crawling out from the bushes. Ryu blinks in disbelief at how many of them there are, and figures luck might finally be on his side. The gnolls charge in, ready to rip him apart, but he doesn't flinch for even a second as he tears through them effortlessly like they're made of paper. Monster corpses fall like confetti around him while the system chimes, announcing that he's just hit the 10th level. Drenched in enemy blood, Ryu fixes his gaze on the glowing message, grinning as it confirms he has finally unlocked the profession he always wanted. System notifications keep popping up one after another as they update him on his new level and freshly unlocked skills. While Ryu keeps his focus steady on the quest window, he already remembers the next sub-quest from his past lives. So when the system instructs him to retrieve the class change item, he's unfazed. Where most players would feel lost and unsure about what comes next, Ryu stands confident, fully aware of the hidden conditions needed to claim those rare items. Warriors need to raise their strength stat to 10 and wipe out 30 monsters in under 60 minutes, while berserkers must stay in combat for a full hour, all while their wounds remain open. On the other hand, assassins have to land precise backstabs on monsters to earn the item. So, the path each player takes directly shapes the class they unlock. In earlier lives, Ryu used to farm monsters without a plan, which always locked him into the hunter class. But ever since he discovered the broken abilities of the Grim Reaper, he never once looked back. Ryu uses the Angel's Blood as his class change item, and the system immediately flashes a warning, reminding him to choose wisely since this decision comes with no takebacks. Without a hint of doubt, Ryu makes his choice right away, triggering a sudden explosion of bright light as the system confirms his successful class change. As a reward, Ryu receives the Grim Reaper rune, which grants a stack of insane perks that instantly bind to his body. The system throws in a bonus Wicked Scythe, along with a 50% discount voucher for any one item in the shop. But that's not all. He also gets bumped up to the apprentice rank, which is the second last out of 6, and unlocks a rank-exclusive skill called Seal of Death, plus the power to wield the Grim Reaper Scythe. Ryu remembers that if someone fails to secure a class, they risk being stuck as a forever newbie. So in his case, charging ahead without delay definitely paid off. For being the first player to unlock a class, Ryu earns a hefty bag of gold, along with a rare general skill called Tracking, which lets him follow anyone he wants as long as he knows who they are. Ryu decides to give the skill a test run by using it on the overly edgy bodyguard, Yongmin Huang, the one he came across earlier. The system lets out a beep as it locks on and lights up a glowing trail for Ryu to follow, while also displaying the exact distance between them. He finds it weird that the lady and her manager are less than 200 meters away and figures they must have tailed him deeper into the forest. Ryu feels annoyed since this has never happened before, and makes up his mind to go pay them a quick visit. Back in the forest, the odd duo is seen running from something, but Seo Aaron suddenly drops to the ground, completely drained and unable to go any farther. She starts complaining loudly to the bodyguard, who tries his best to get her back on her feet before the goons behind them catch up. He offers some words of encouragement while helping her up, but she keeps whining that her arrow wound still hurts like hell. The bodyguard mentions that it's possible their real bodies won't be harmed as long as they manage to survive in the game. Aaron pulls herself together and agrees to keep running, but right then, a nasty voice cuts through the air, calling out to them. They both freeze and turn around and panic to see the thugs chasing them, led by none other than Yongmin himself. The bodyguard silently curses the dramatic actress for wasting so much time and gets ready to fight, knowing there's no other choice now. Yongmin throws out a taunt, mocking the bodyguard and calling him a doofus boomer for even thinking he can take them all on. The bodyguard tries pulling a talk no jutsu, claiming they're completely innocent, but Yongmin casually confirms that they actually haven't done anything wrong, which throws them both off completely. The thugs then reveal the real reason is that they want to get their filthy hands on the beautiful lady. Somehow, the musclehead actually uses a few brain cells and figures out they're not after him, but Aaron. The goons begin drooling openly while ogling her body, clearly not caring whether she's the actress or just someone who looks like her, and Aaron can only stare back in pure horror. Yongmin smugly offers to let the bodyguard walk away unharmed if he just turns and leaves right now. He pauses for a second, thinking that if he had known what they were really after, he could have ditched her at the very beginning, since he's not exactly rushing to die anytime soon. But one thought keeps pestering him, that he can't face his boss after abandoning her, and that fear alone is enough to push him to risk it all. Yongmin keeps up his taunts, ready to fight, but the bodyguard makes one last attempt to reason, claiming what they're doing is illegal. The thugs burst into laughter, and the musclehead asks which laws apply here and who is going to report to. Yongmin mocks him further, questioning how he'll prove anything or track him down later. This frustrates the bodyguard, but deep down he knows there's some truth to what Yongmin says. Since threats haven't worked, he decides to face them head-on. But just before he can throw a punch, a figure in the distance catches his eye, breaking his focus. Ryu steps into view, leaning against a tree, farming his aura. His sudden appearance catches everyone off guard. Black Scythe walks toward them slowly, demanding to know what's going on. Yongmin Min tries to speak up, but Ryu shuts him down, asking the duo about their situation. The bodyguard quickly explains that the thugs are after Aren and begs for Ryu's help, promising to repay him later. Ryu glances at Min, who starts to sweat under the pressure and asks if what they're saying is true. Min tries to brush him off, telling Ryu to mind his own business, but Ryu isn't having it. He begins to glow with an ominous aura, declaring that the duo are his friends. The thugs stare at the black fire in fear, but Min dares to question him. Ryu brandishes his scythe, coldly, stating that he will not abandon them in their time of need. Min feels completely terrified, wondering how Ryu plans to handle the situation with them. The bodyguard and CO Aren breathes a sigh of relief and expresses their gratitude toward Black Scythe. But Ryu is far from satisfied. He wants something for himself as well, and does not intend to leave empty-handed from this encounter. He contemplates that by saving Ma Kyung-rok's subordinate, he could earn some valuable favors, and that would mark the start of a strong and prosperous relationship between them. The cherry on top is that he never liked the thugs in the first place, so taking them down is just an added bonus, killing two birds with one stone. The goons panic as Ryu steadily advances toward them, and they threaten him to stay back. Ryu halts for a brief moment, smirking at them as he asks if they're all bark and no bite. Min quickly realizes that he has no chance against Ryu, recalling how he massacred those goblins and claimed first place. He knows only an absolute fool would dare to fight him after seeing what he's capable of. Ryu taunts them once more and demands that they be honest with him. Min wonders if Ryu will let him go, but Ryu replies that he will only consider it if they crawl like dogs and beg for mercy. The musclehead struggles to process what's happening, and it dawns on him that Ryu is simply mocking them and wants him to kneel while his friends and Seo Aren watch. Min feels the urge to back down even though his reputation is on the line. Suddenly, a less than brilliant idea crosses his mind, and he convinces himself that his training has made him strong enough to crush our boy like a can. A surge of misplaced confidence fills him, and he insults Min openly, warning him to prepare for the beating of his life. Min, now fuming, moves toward Ryu, telling him to take his sorry self somewhere else because he's about to get cooked. The musclehead steps closer, thinking he can close the gap enough to land a hit on Ryu's head. Believing that a well-placed strike will be enough to deal with Black Scythe, Min can almost taste the sweet victory, but is caught off guard when Min suddenly puts his scythe away and asks him what he plans to do now. Ryu teases him, mentioning that the fight would end quickly if he used a weapon, so he decided to make things fair. The musclehead grins in confusion, but his expression shifts in an instant when Ryu vanishes from his line of sight. Ryu dashes forward at full speed toward Min, who smirks, thinking that a bare-handed fight will be in his favor. The musclehead throws a wild haymaker, but to his surprise, Ryu manages to dodge it effortlessly. Before Min can think of anything else, he suddenly lurches forward in pain as Ryu connects his knee to his stomach, sending him flying backward. The brain-dead guy groans in agony, struggling to get up, but still manages to spit out a curse toward Ryu. Unimpressed, Black Scythe approaches the thug and punishes him for his swearing with a brutal, merciless kick to the face. The one-sided beatdown doesn't stop there as Ryu lifts the goon by his collar, delivering repeated smacks that echo in the air. Min is left confused, unable to process how Ryu can hit him so hard as if he were a jackhammer. It suddenly hits him that Ryu is not only as strong as him, but he might even be stronger. Even though Ryu doesn't have the strength rune, Min wonders how Ryu got so strong as he collapses to the ground, beaten to a pulp. Ryu stands there staring at his handiwork, but his moment is quickly interrupted by the goons, who are preparing to launch a sneak attack. One of the thugs fires a powerful arrow, causing Aren to scream at the top of her lungs, urging Ryu to dodge it. Despite his overwhelming power, Ryu effortlessly evades the arrow, leaving the thug in a panic as he quickly loads another one. Ryu weaves left and right with precision, perfectly dodging each arrow. He closes the gap between them in no time. Reaching the archer, he faces him directly and commends him on his skill, but warns him to pray to whatever deity he worships because his luck ran out the moment he crossed paths with him. Without hesitation, Ryu slashes with his scythe, dismembering the archer with a clean cut that sends a scream of pain into the air. The other thugs panic, but they still make the mistake of challenging him even after witnessing what happened to their comrade. One of them dares to rush at Ryu with a knife, swearing like a maniac that he will end his life. However, Ryu remains calm and collected, unbothered by the thug's words. With a casual motion, he activates his skill seal of death as he swings his giant scythe. A deadly look flashes in his eyes as the blade cuts through the air. The thug barely gets a moment to react before the scythe slices clean through his legs like butter, dropping him to the ground like a domino while his friend stands there frozen in horror. Panic takes over the poor guy as he stares at the severed limbs. But before he can even process it, Ryu lunges at him with his scythe raised high, since he already has his weapon drawn. Ryu calmly asks if he's ready to deal with the consequences of what he started. A swift slash follows, tearing the thug's arm clean off and sending him into a screaming mess of suffering. Ryu takes a quick look at the result and nods to himself, clearly pleased that his strike was strong enough to slice clean through the armor without a hitch. The thugs lie scattered across the ground while Ryu stands over them, thinking this sorry excuse for a fight was nothing short of a walk in the park. Even though his enemies are already down, the storm isn't over yet because Ryu steps forward, fully intending to scare them so badly they won't even think about looking his way again. After being thoroughly wrecked, the thugs start begging Ryu to stop, terrified they might actually lose their lives, but Ryu tells them to toughen up while he wipes off his scythe, making one of them flinch just from his presence alone. With that, Ryu decides he's done torturing these clowns and turns his attention toward Yong Min, who tries to sneak off unnoticed. Ryu quickly snaps his head in his direction and says loud and clear that hiding won't save him, because no matter where he runs, he can't outrun his fate. Black Scythe brings his blade down again and slices through the thug's arm, forcing a scream of agony out of him. With a look colder than ice, Ryu calls him a wuss for not being able to handle pain that means nothing compared to the suffering these douchebags caused in the past. He doesn't give the guy a moment to breathe or even grasp what just happened. As he cuts off the remaining limb without a second thought, the duo stands there frozen, completely unable to look away from the gruesome sight. In his mind, the bodyguard struggles to accept how brutal Ryu is for tormenting enemies who have already given up, while others might see his actions as unhinged. But his calm and focused demeanor surprises the bodyguard and makes him think that Ryu stands on equal ground with his own boss. The bodyguard snaps back to reality as Ryu asks if the two of them are all right. The bodyguard thanks him once again on their behalf, and Ryu reassures them not to worry about the thugs anymore. He points out that they don't have the mental or physical ability to move, so the only thing left for them to do is vote when the time comes. Both of them bow their heads in gratitude, but Aaron hesitantly asks, what if the thugs bleed out all alone? Ryu tells her to leave it to fate, while thinking she's too soft-hearted for her own good. He's curious about why she's concerned for their attackers, and wonders if it's connected to her desire to maintain her nice girl image. The bodyguard interrupts his thoughts, raising his hand to ask something. He questions Ryu's decision to let the thugs live. So he repeats the thug's words that taking others' lives should have no real consequence in the world, which sends a chill down Yong Min's spine. He smiles at the question, pleasantly surprised by the bodyguard's big brain, and answers that eliminating them serves no purpose to him. The bodyguard tries to argue that they might come after him in the future, but Ryu disagrees, looking at their terrified expressions, and says they won't be causing any more trouble. He explains that finishing them off would actually be a disadvantage, since reducing the number of contestants means fewer spots for players down the line. Realization hits. Who can't believe that Ryu is not just brawn, but also sharp-minded? He silently stares at him, impressed by both his strength and intellect. The bodyguard unwillingly agrees with Ryu to leave the pile of trash alone. Satisfied that his work is done, Ryu then turns to leave, but bodyguard and Seo Arin stops him to ask for his account details so they can repay him for all the help. Ryu casually tells them not to worry about it as he walks away with a confident stride, leaving the two of them stunned that he didn't demand anything in return. As the bodyguard thinks he should report the incident to his boss as soon as possible, his thoughts are interrupted by by Yong Min's painful groans, as if he got kicked in the nads with a bat. The bodyguard is tempted to end him right there, but he decides to follow through on Black Scythe's advice. He spits on the thug and then escorts Aaron out of the area. Meanwhile, back at the clearing, the crowd is in an uproar as everyone fights to become the zone representative. The shouts quickly escalate into insults, with threats of fights breaking out that cause the other onlookers to step in and try to calm things down. A few players attempt to seize the moment, claiming they would be better leaders who can actually stay calm under pressure. And one of them even brags that his daddy is a big shot in politics, but the others are skeptical since he has no proof to back up his bold claim. Amidst the chaos, a charismatic voice calls out to them to stop their fighting and draws their attention to the timer, urging them not to waste time bickering like children. Curious, the other players ask this mysterious man with mint ice cream hair if he has a way to fix the situation quickly. His confident reply leaves everyone on edge, while he laughs at how gullible they are in his mind. It is clear that his powers are working just like last time, thanks to the rune of persuasion. Cho Man flashes back to when he first got his power and immediately assumes he got scammed. He doesn't see any real use for it at the time and figures he'll end up as monster food since the skill has no effect on them. Just as that thought settles in, a sharp idea hits him when he sees the other players hold the goblins down on the ground. He points at a random NPC and tells everyone with a confident voice to go rescue the damsel in distress. The group rushes off without a second thought and leaves their kills behind in their rush to be the hero. As the crowd clears out, Cho Man finishes the monsters and secures his 100 kills. A strange smile stretches across his face while he drools at the chance to take over as zone leader. Back in the present, Cho Man tells everyone to first find 5 or 6 candidates before deciding who to vote for. The brainwashed players nod along and accept what sounds like fair terms. So Mint Boy starts picking out names and tells the others to nominate anyone they believe is trustworthy. A chubby noble player tries to put himself forward, but Cho Man shuts him down and trashes his logic, pointing out that if self-nominations were allowed, then everyone would do it. He brushes off the arrogant player without a second thought. Everyone agrees to the terms without question, while Cho Man laughs to himself, knowing just how easy it is to fool them. Confusion spreads through the crowd as no one knows who deserves their vote. But Mint Cho Man has already counted on this and knows they'll go for whoever stands out the most. One of the players falls for the trap and nominates the blue-haired player, praising how naturally he commands a crowd with his leadership. Cho Man puts on an innocent act while the player stands by his decision to approve the nomination. Unaware, he has walked right into Cho Man's plan. He thanks the player with a smug grin, pretending to be grateful for the easy setup, then asks the crowd if anyone has more candidates to offer. One player suggests Black Scythe, which makes perfect sense since he topped the previous round. 2 more voices speak up, naming the second and third place winners from that same round. With 4 nominees now chosen, Cho Man asks one last time if anyone has more names to add, but the crowd stays quiet. He claps his hands to wrap up the selection and invites the nominees to step forward and give their speeches. Feeling overly pleased with himself, he takes the lead and steps up first, certain he has already made a fool out of the entire group. Mint Boy begins his speech but barely manages a word before someone shouts at him to shut his mouth. He pauses and turns his head, confused as he tries to spot the source of the voice. Joe Jungik, better known as Life is a Documentary, steps into view and strolls toward him with a look that says he's not here to play nice. Clearly angry, Joe questions what kind of scheme Choco Boy thinks he's running. Mint Boy steps in and tries to diffuse the tension, but Joe brushes him off and demands to know who put Chocolate Man in charge, asking why he gets to decide anything. Mint Chocolate feels a wave of panic as it seems Joe has seen straight through him, though he quickly tries to convince himself it might just be a lucky guess. Joe keeps pressing and calls him out for his obvious lies, but Chocolate Man fires back, taking shots at Joe's background and lack of basic manners. Still hoping his powers will finally take effect, Mint Boy attempts to calm the situation, but instead ends up pushing the wrong buttons. Mr. Documentary snaps and threatens to take him out, clearly past the point of holding back. He stands frozen in shock as he realizes his skill has no effect on the brute, but Joe no longer pays him any mind and shifts his focus to the crowd. With a glare, the gangster threatens the players, shouting that they'd better vote for him unless they want to regret it. Mint Boy fires back, calling him an idiot and saying no sane person would follow someone like him. He mocks Joe, telling him to run off like a good little boy. For a moment, Joe goes silent before suddenly stepping in and dragging a dagger clean across Chocolate Man's throat. Chocolate Boy tries to say something, but blood pours too fast for words to form as he clutches his neck in desperation. Joe mocks him, saying that resisting was a stupid move, while the helpless player slowly slips into unconsciousness and drops to the floor. Mr. Documentary turns to face the others and announces that this is what happens to anyone who refuses to listen. Panic spreads across the crowd as everyone stares at Cho Man's lifeless body and starts screaming at Joe, calling him a murderer. This doesn't bother him in the slightest as he lifts his blade and dares anyone bold enough to try and take him on. One player clearly misses the warning and keeps running his mouth, giving Mr. Documentary all the excuse he needs. With a wild grin spreading across his face, he charges forward and cuts down a few players who still have the nerve to speak out, painting the area in blood. His face twists into something completely unhinged, fully embracing the thrill of tearing through whoever he wants with no one around to stop him. To him, this chaos feels like paradise, a place where he can do whatever he pleases. With blood dripping from his blade, he raises it once more and challenges anyone to defy him. But the crowd stands frozen, too terrified to make a move. The gangster starts thinking to himself that no one in their right mind would dare challenge him now, and nothing is going to stop him from claiming the spot as representative. In his mind, the moment he takes charge, there's only one thing left to do. To fold Black Scythe into two like the iPhone 6, he figures once Ryu is out of the way, no one else will have the power to block his rise to the top. Meanwhile, Ryu is out grinding for points and wiping out monsters one after another while squeezing every bit of advantage out of his rune and buffs. A system notification pops up congratulating him for reaching level 16, but the perfectionist isn't impressed. Progress has started to slow down, and even though he's been tearing through monsters at a rate of 100 an hour, he's only managed to climb 6 levels. At the very least, hunting the smaller critters has become much easier. He now has both the Grim Reaper and the Slaughter rune. Ryu glances at the time and notices that 3 hours have already gone by, so he figures it's about time to head back. Before he can take a step, though, a golden light begins to shine above him and saves him the trouble, teleporting all the players back to the starting point. The bodyguard and Arin are left completely shaken by the destruction and chaos left behind by Jungkook Joe. Ryu tries to make sense of the situation, thinking that Joe, being the leader of the Jungkook gang, is obviously a seasoned fighter who's always managed to hold second place on the local rankings. Although his personality is absolute trash, he figures that someone this unstable needs to be dealt with at the right time. All while that maniac casually walks up to him. Ryu asks what he wants, and Joe answers with a suggestion that Black Scythe should work under him unless he wants to die. Ryu clearly takes that as an insult and fires back by telling Joe to kneel and beg for his life if survival is what he's after. Joe clearly doesn't get the hint and keeps running his mouth about becoming the representative, but Ryu quickly shuts him up and pulls out his scythe, asking if he'd listen better after being sent to the afterlife. Joe stares in shock, completely dumbfounded at the sight of the weapon, and instantly realizes he picked the wrong guy to mess with. Ryu makes his stance clear and demands an answer, but the thug stays stubborn, declaring that the leader of the Jungkook gang kneels before no one and throws down a challenge. Ryu acknowledges the guts, but knows it's time to stop playing around since he doesn't want too many eyes on him right now, especially if he wants to secure votes. He decides it's better to let Joe become the representative so he can pull the strings from behind in the next round. Right then, the angel makes her entrance, and everyone's attention naturally shifts to her. Ryu takes the chance to whisper to the thug that he just got lucky this time and should watch his back if he doesn't want to die a stupid death. Joe breathes a little easier now that the tension breaks and slowly realizes how close he came to dying, swearing to himself that he'll take revenge once he becomes the representative. The angel looks over the crowd and asks if the humans have picked a representative yet. She seems a little surprised by how chaotic things got, but casually says it makes no difference whether they're dead or alive, calling them nothing more than insects. She then begins the voting process as a translucent screen pops up in front of everyone, explaining that to vote, all they have to do is stare at the person they've picked and think about voting for them, warning that anyone who doesn't vote within 5 minutes will be killed on the spot. The players begin locking their gaze on someone, and Joe instantly assumes that he's the center of attention. But the moment he notices that people aren't actually looking at him, he starts throwing threats around, warning everyone that they'll die if they don't vote for him. The countdown finally hits 0, and every player manages to cast their vote, officially wrapping up the round. As soon as the angel brings up the tally board, she reveals that Joe, who goes by the ridiculous nickname Life is a Documentary, has barely scraped a win in the election, with Black Scythe landing just behind in second place. The thug stands frozen in disbelief as he glares at the crowd, already guessing which traitors dared to vote for Black Scythe instead of him. The angel doesn't waste time and concludes the process by naming Joe the official representative of the local map, handing over the command right ability, which allows him to control 10 players. Joe flashes a wicked grin, already picturing himself getting payback using this brand new power, though his dreams crash the moment he reads the fine print and learns that the skill only lasts for 10 turns, lets him issue just one command at a time, and becomes completely useless against anyone who has unlocked a profession. Right after, the angel decides to drop another bomb by revealing that the map had a hidden quest that allowed players to unlock a profession before the voting round even began. Everyone looks confused, and the angel clears it up by saying that the side quest would have appeared once any player reached level 10. The crowd starts whining that they never had a chance to level up because there were barely any monsters around, but the angel just looks disappointed and tells them the forest was crawling with monsters the whole time, though she softens the blow by adding that only 8 people in the entire world had actually managed to finish the side quest. She goes on to mention that someone from their local map has also managed to gain a profession, and then pulls up the side quest results to reveal who it is. Once again, Black Scythe has come out on top, ranking first both in the local map and worldwide, earning the profession of Reaper. Everyone turns to stare at Ryu in complete disbelief while he casually strikes a pose, taking the chance to farm a bit of aura from their reactions. People start thinking about what the Reaper profession could actually mean, and a few assume he probably got that scythe because of it, while Joe just stands there dumbfounded since he had planned to make Black Scythe end his own life using the command, right? Only to realize now that it won't even work on him. The angel then explains that the ranking is based on how fast players manage to complete the side quest, and seems genuinely impressed that not only did Ryu unlock a profession, but he also managed to rank first on the entire world map. She begins to wonder if his name lining up so perfectly with his unique profession is nothing more than a coincidence, or if he already knew it was going to matter. Ryu replies that it's just a coincidence and flashes a smile, fully aware that the angels don't actually know the conditions required for that profession. The angel finds it amusing and wonders aloud if this is what humans refer to as fate, then points out how crazy it is that he's now immune to the command, right? Something that clearly surprises the rest of the players. After catching their interest, she explains that anyone who has unlocked a profession can't be commanded by the representative. And just when it seems like she's done, she totally blows up the thug's entire plan like she's been waiting to take a shot at him, pointing out that he can only use the command 10 times in total, which brings a wave of relief across the players, while Joe clenches his teeth in pure frustration. The angel finally turns to Ryu and hands over the rewards for completing the side quest and ranking first in the world, giving him a low-tier armor ticket along with a special reward chest. He redeems the armor ticket and gets the option to pick between 3 different kinds of armor. He picks the skilled hunter's leather armor since it offers the perfect balance between defense and agility. As for the special rewards chest, he gets to choose between an XP buff, 3,000 gold, and information about the next round. And knowing that there will be loads of monsters to slay in the upcoming stage, he confidently goes for the experience buff. With the rewards now distributed, the angel sends everyone back into the real world and casually announces that the next round is going to be a lot more fun. Yongmin wakes up in bed completely shaken, only to realize that his arms and legs are all still there, and he lets out a sigh of relief, knowing that the injuries sustained in the game won't carry over to the real world as long as he survives them. He grits his teeth and swears to never go up against Black Scythe again, not even wanting to be in the same space as the terrifying protagonist. Back at the hotel, the bodyguard praises Seo Arin for doing well, though she admits she had been more of a burden, and sincerely thanks him for protecting her. He stays composed and tells her he was simply doing his job. Arin then brings up her wish to thank Black Scythe for saving them, but says she has no idea how to go about it. The bodyguard argues that it would be nearly impossible to track down Black Scythe since he hasn't revealed his identity, and given that he didn't provide his bank account number for compensation, it's clear that he doesn't want to be found. Maybe he knows his identity could be traced through something like that. He goes on suggesting that giving Black Scythe an item in the next round might be a good way to show gratitude, which Seo Arin agrees with. The bodyguard wishes her good night, and the next thing he knows, he's in the elevator calling Heavenly Demon. He asks why Heavenly Demon is still awake, to which Heavenly Demon responds that he just needed a drink. The bodyguard congratulates him on getting the Dark Knight profession. Heavenly Demon then asks about their progress, and the bodyguard explains that he and Arin only made it to level 8 because they got injured mid-level. Heavenly Demon shows interest as the bodyguard mentions he's planning to report the matter and asks if Heavenly Demon has time. Upon hearing that it's about Black Scythe, Heavenly Demon tells him to head to the hotel to discuss it. Ryu watches from a distance as the bodyguard gets into his car and drives off, quickly deducing that he's heading to Heavenly Demon. A while ago, he had been using his tracker ability to locate the bodyguard, and the system had shown that he was nearby. But then, when the distance begins to increase rapidly, Ryu realizes that the bodyguard is on the move. Wondering if he's meeting Heavenly Demon, Ryu decides to head out and see for himself. Back at the hotel, Heavenly Demon marvels at how perfect the Dark Knight profession is for pet projects, but he knows the report should be his first priority. Sitting down, he starts to think about Black Scythe, wondering what the report related to him could possibly be. Assuming the worst, Heavenly Demon jumps to the conclusion that the protagonist must have assaulted his manager and Sang Cheol and vows revenge. For him, assaulting his manager is like assaulting him, and he affirms that he will break anyone who dares to get in his way. Just then, the bodyguard knocks on the door, and Heavenly Demon lets him in. They greet each other with the bodyguard saying he's doing well, all thanks to Heavenly Demon. He replies that he's not even on the same map. The bodyguard flatters him further by saying that having him around is motivation enough, which Heavenly Demon immediately calls out before telling him to sit. The bodyguard continues congratulating him on his survival, which Heavenly Demon dismisses, and then desperately congratulates him again on getting a profession, calling it just luck. The bodyguard argues that luck depends on the person and points out how difficult it is to rank second in the world. He tells Heavenly Demon that it's an honor to serve him, but Heavenly Demon directly cuts to the point, calling out the bodyguard for his flattery and saying that the manager must want something from him. Heavenly Demon allows him to speak, and the bodyguard hesitates. He asks Heavenly Demon how he got his class item, to which Heavenly Demon replies that he got it by hunting monsters. In reality, he had received it from the random rune piece granted to all players at the start of round 1 by the first angel. It was then that he discovered he could enter the Dark Knight profession once he reached level level 10. Heavenly Demon knows he got extremely lucky at the start, but despite that, he understands he can't reveal such sensitive information to his manager since humans can change sides so easily. He quickly changes the subject, asking the bodyguard who injured him and whether it was Black Scythe who did it. The manager quickly clears things up and tells Heavenly Demon that he actually owes Black Scythe, Heavenly Demon. Heavenly Demon's curiosity peaks as the bodyguard explains the entire situation. He recounts how a group of troublemakers had gone after Aaron, nearly costing both of their lives, and how Black Scythe stepped in to save them. He points out that even if Aaron could have survived physically, the psychological toll would have been so great that her career would have been over. Realizing that he nearly lost his most loyal man and his business, Heavenly Demon falls silent for a few minutes. Finally, he asks about the fate of the people who hurt them, wondering if they were killed. But the bodyguard explains that Black Scythe didn't kill them. Despite Heavenly Demon's protests, the manager clarifies that Black Scythe argued that killing them would be pointless and would only harm everyone's chances of surviving the next round. The bodyguard starts to worry whether those thugs might come back to cause trouble in the future, but he admits that Black Scythe did protect both him and Aaron, and in that sense, even Heavenly Demon is indebted to him. He decides they should compensate the hero, but the bodyguard tells him that Black Scythe had rejected compensation right then and there and simply walked off. Ma instantly realizes that Black Scythe is trying to keep his identity hidden by refusing any compensation, showing just how cautious he is. He tells the bodyguard to send his regards in the next round and to keep an eye on Black Scythe, helping him out whenever he can because Heavenly Demon hates owing anyone. Just as he's about to leave, Heavenly Demon pauses, turns around, and asks for the names of the people who had attacked them. Outside the hotel, Ryu takes a moment to assess the situation, feeling satisfied knowing that the manager led him to Heavenly Demon like a little birdie. He heads out to avoid drawing any attention, though he finds it odd that Heavenly Demon is hosting people's lives in the same apartment he calls home. As he walks toward his car, he thinks to himself that he has the upper hand, all thanks to his brother distributing rice cakes and unexpectedly running into Irene and the bodyguard. He figures that he can win Heavenly Demon's trust if he plays his cards right by leveraging the fact that he's his manager's neighbor. However, he remains undecided on whether he should bring Heavenly Demon around 20 or not. He then reflects on Heavenly Demon's rune of the Dark Knight, which in his eyes gave him an unfair advantage early in the game, almost like a glitch. He knows that no runes typically come with a profession, but this one does, though it also binds the player to that specific role. For Heavenly Demon, this means he has to charge a special energy called Dark Mana to use an ability known as Dark Aura. He realizes that the way to acquire this Dark Aura isn't conventional and oddly aligns with Heavenly Demon's psychopathic tendencies. This makes him question whether keeping Heavenly Demon as a teammate is the best option. Still, he figures Heavenly Demon could prove useful, so he decides to keep him in mind as a viable candidate. He knows there are other good candidates out there, one of them being a girl, and decides it's time to get to work the next day. The following day, the scene shifts to a local retail store where the shop owner sighs, clearly worried about his sales dropping. Just then, his daughter Juri appears and asks why her dad seems down. He explains that NATO is pulling sales from their shop because the government is uncertain about the players and how they'll use their powers. He's concerned about how he'll manage financially, but Juri reassures him that she'll help once she graduates and even considers working a part-time job. Her dad urges her to focus on her studies, insisting she shouldn't worry about their finances. He points out that she has good grades and can get into a good university to become a doctor, but Juri tells him that she gave up on her dream a long time ago given their current situation. Her father, with tears in his eyes, understands that money is the real issue, and he's deeply worried that Juri will have to survive the upcoming rounds as well. Overcome with emotion, he breaks down, struggling to find an explanation for himself, and starts weeping. But Juri holds his hands gently and tells him not to feel guilty because everything that's happened was unavoidable. She then reveals that she gained a profession during the second round. Before her dad can fully comprehend what she's saying, she uses an ability that casts a green aura around him, leaving him confused. She explains that she gained the profession of buffer, and with it, she can boost anyone's stats by blessing them. For regular people, it feels like an energy boost. Her dad starts to feel better, and Jury assures him that she'll use this ability on him often. He feels a surge of energy and tells her he'll try his best. Just then, Ryu enters the shop, leaving the owner in shock. Jury asks if her dad knows the guy, and he whispers that Ryu is the person who won first place in the Natto lottery and wrote the same number for every ticket he bought. Ryu asks if the owner remembers him and introduces himself as the guy who bought Natto tickets worth 100,001 last month. The owner is intrigued by this introduction and asks why Ryu is there. Ryu explains that he wants to apologize, mentioning that he saw in the news that Natto withdrew their tickets from the store because of his win. He elaborates that he never intended to cause any inconvenience. The owner reassures him that it's not the customer's fault and adds that Natto pulling their tickets won't make him bankrupt. Despite this, Ryu pulls out an envelope containing 10 million won and hands it to the shop owner as compensation for any trouble he might have caused. The shop owner is stunned and insists Ryu doesn't need to pay him, but Ryu firmly tells him to take the money because he wants him to before leaving the store. The owner is overwhelmed by the situation and refuses to accept such a large sum. Jury volunteers to run after him and give the envelope back, and her dad agrees. She rushes after him and eventually catches up, calling out his name. However, Rao doesn't recognize her. She tells him they're in the same class, but Rao claims he isn't good at remembering faces and doesn't know her. In reality, he knows exactly who Jury is. She's the store owner's daughter and has the buffer profession. He recalls the first time he met her and how he discovered they were classmates, which surprised him. He had intentionally made their first meeting during this regression seem like a coincidence, so that Jury would join his team without hesitation. Jury asks if they can talk somewhere, and Ryu agrees. The scene shifts to a local park where they're sitting on a bench. Jury hands him back the envelope. Ryu recognizes the envelope as the one he gave to the shop owner, and Jury explains that they can't accept such a large amount. Ryu smiles, knowing they wouldn't have taken it, because Jury despises owing anyone even when she's in a difficult situation. Jury urges him to take it, but Ryu refuses, saying the money was meant as an apology, and his moral compass won't allow him to take it back. Jury repeats that the amount is so large it's uncomfortable to accept, which Ryu knows all too well. He counters by saying the amount isn't big for him, so there's no need for them to worry. While Jury wonders why Ryu is being so stubborn, he stands up and begins to walk away. She stops him and negotiates, asking if it would be okay to return 9 million and keep 1 million instead. Ryu challenges her, asking how she can decide that without the shop owner's approval. Jury reveals that the owner is her father. Ryu pretends to be surprised and calls it a coincidence. Jury also finds it strange that the Natto winner turned out to be her classmate, and he doesn't recognize her while she recognized him the moment he walked into the shop. Ryu again pretends he's not good at remembering faces and says it's the first time she's talking to him face to face. Jury understands this means he must have heard her name for the first time that day as well. She stands up, walks toward him, and introduces herself again, asking him to remember her face. Ryu assures her that he will. The girl is then overtaken by the sadness of having to introduce herself to her classmates, even though they're about to graduate. Ryu consoles her, telling her that he'll stay in touch after graduation. After saying this, he asks for her phone number. Jury hesitates at first, but eventually types it into his phone. Ryu suggests they should be friends, and then begins to walk away. Just then, Jury realizes she didn't return the envelope and calls out to him. Ryu simply waves and leaves. She stands there for a moment, then becomes overwhelmed by the fact that he asked for her number. Even though he asked as a friend, Jury can't help but feel a flutter because in her heart, she has a crush on him. She remembers the time she saw him getting bullied and feeling a sense of responsibility called the police. She followed him home, only to see him work at his part-time job like nothing had happened. It was then that she realized how strong of a person he truly was. Since then, her interest in him had grown, but she was too hesitant to talk to him and couldn't even bring herself to approach him. Now she feels she shouldn't hesitate anymore. Fate has brought them together, especially after he gave them 10 million won. Determined, she decides to be brave and plans to invite him to lunch. The scene shifts to Ryu sitting in bed at home when he gets a text from Juri asking if he's available for lunch because she has something to talk about. Ryu tries to pay for the meal, but Juri insists it's on her. He smiles, knowing his plan is working perfectly. Juri doesn't want to feel indebted and is more likely to help him when he needs it. He gets up to get ready, thinking to himself that he'll keep Juri alive until the 20th round this time. As he's about to leave, his brother asks where he's headed. Ryu replies that he's going to meet a friend. His brother then asks if the friend is a girl, and Ryu agrees, telling his brother that he'll be eating out, so he should have something without him. This leaves the little brother in a confused, amusing state, thinking his brother is in a relationship. The scene shifts to a restaurant where Ryu and Juri are having steaks for lunch. Juri still can't believe she's having one-on-one lunch with him and hesitates to speak for a while. Finally, she gathers the courage to ask how he managed to win Natto 4 times in a row. Ryu casually replies that the numbers were revealed to him in a dream. She then asks how much he earned from the cards, and Ryu confidently tells her that he doesn't have to worry about money for the rest of his life. Juri remembers something and asks Ryu how his first round went. Ryu tells her that he had a hard time catching all the goblins. She gets curious about his player map location, and he mentions that he doesn't remember the exact number, but that the last digit is 5. She laments that her map number ends in 7, so they won't be able to meet in the other world. But Ryu knows that they will meet when the maps merge once fewer players are left. Juri then asks about his level, to which Ryu lies, saying he's at level 10. She's ecstatic, revealing that she's level 10 too. When she asks about his profession, he replies that he doesn't have one yet. Juri claims she's been lucky, having gotten the profession of buffer. Ryu asks her if it works like a game character, although he already knows what it does. Juri explains that her ability is called Bless, and it can raise anyone's stats. She then asks if he wants her to use it on him. Ryu agrees, and Juri boosts his stats by 50% for 3 hours, leaving him amazed. Ryu marvels at the results and realizes that once she reaches max level, her ability will upgrade to double the current buff. The reason he wanted her to buff his stats is that he had received a random gold pouch in the previous round, which gives the user gold based on their luck stat. The higher his luck, the more gold he would receive. Ryu thanks Juri for the buff, and she tells him she can do it for him anytime he wants. Ryu then asks what she wanted to discuss. Juri explains that her father wanted to send his thanks for the money he had given them and promises to return it when she's able to do so. Ryu reassures her that she doesn't need to return anything, so she tries to compensate him with an item she got in the previous round. She hands him a purple crystal. After leaving the restaurant, they both wish each other good luck for the next round. Later, Ryu goes to a local park and opens his inventory. To his surprise, the crystal Juri had given him is a mana crystal, which turns out to be an A-tier item. This was unexpected for him. He judges that the item's description doesn't do it justice, and players will only truly understand its importance when they reach level 20. The crystal allows players to combine it with their weapons, granting them different enhancements. There are 7 types of crystals in the game: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, navy, and purple. Each crystal has a different effect. Red increases damage, orange increases power, yellow boosts luck, green raises speed, blue enhances intelligence, navy reduces incoming damage, and purple, the rarest, increases all stats on a weapon. He feels lucky, and then remembers that his luck stat is boosted by the buff, so he realizes he needs to act fast if he wants to open the random gold pouch. He pulls out a bag of mealworms, planning to crush them to activate his rune of slaughter, which boosts his stats by 1% with every kill. He stomps on the worms repeatedly, watching his stats increase by 100%, which raises his luck stat from 15 to 45. Afterward, he opens his inventory, pulls out the random gold pouch, and uses it, expecting to get anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 gold. However, he's caught off guard by what he actually receives. The system chimes as Ryu pulls open the gold pouch reward and freezes for a second, completely floored when he sees a massive 10,000 gold prize sitting inside. Later, back at his apartment, Ryu strolls inside and spots his brother glued to his phone. Doom scrolling through TikTok like a professional when little brother immediately clocks him and jumps straight into grilling him about the so-called date. Ryu is just as surprised and wastes no time shutting that down, insisting there's absolutely nothing romantic going on with the girl, hoping to steer the conversation somewhere else. He asks if one's eaten yet, and his brother beams while proudly announcing he demolished some juicy cup ramen. Ryu tries pushing his brother to branch out and finally try something different for once, but his brother stays fiercely loyal to his favorite food, unlike his traitorous ex, and says it's something he's actually been craving for a while now. That ends up stirring up memories of the broke days they both had to tough out before luck finally decided to throw them a bone. As Ryu sits there thinking about it, he realizes it's been a good while since he last checked on his bet coins. Remembering the market might crash any minute, he figures he should just cash them out and use the money to finally grab a driving permit. Later, Ryu sits down for his online driving test, letting out a long, bored sigh as the whole routine feels painfully familiar after taking it countless times across his past lives. He breezes through the questions without breaking a sweat and wraps everything up in record time before standing up like he's ready to dip. The supervisor watches him go, probably assuming he's just another newbie giving up halfway, but his face freezes completely when the system suddenly announces Ryu's nearly perfect score. Thanks to everything, he's already got burned into his brain. Ryu ends up landing his license in under 4 days without breaking a sweat. This ends up throwing Ryu into a tiny crisis, since after thinking back on all his regressions, he figures he should honestly be some bald old geyser by now. The second he gets his shiny new license, Min doesn't waste even a second before locking his sights on his dream car, a limited edition Lambo so wild it could make even Tate die of jealousy. He asks the salesman how long it'll take to get one, and the man tells him it'll be about a month. Not missing a single beat, Ryu slaps down the order, and the salesman, looking like he just won the lottery, immediately starts showering him with congratulations. 2 weeks roll by, and the big moment finally arrives for Ryu to dump all his Bitcoin and dodge the crash like a boss. Little brother catches sight of his brother's weird little grin and asks if he somehow just hit the jackpot. Staying cool as ever, Ryu casually says he sold off all his crypto for a mind-blowing 300 billion, nearly making Juan spit his coffee everywhere in pure shock. He just stares, totally baffled at how their tiny savings skyrocketed to the moon. But for Ryu, it's honestly just another regular Tuesday. One still remembers warning his brother not to throw all his money into one basket, and honestly can't believe how things actually turned out. Ryu says he didn't expect it either, and just ended up hitting a personal record by sheer luck. His innocent little brother asks if he's planning to withdraw everything, finally relaxing a bit when Ryu casually says yes. That tiny bit of peace doesn't last long, though, and the little brother nearly drops his mug when our hero casually mentions he's thinking about dabbling in stocks next. The little brother immediately starts getting worked up again, clearly doubting whether his brother even knows the first thing about stocks. But Ryu just tells him to chill and trust the old man in his dream card he's pulling with full confidence again. The gullible younger brother actually falls for it and asks if there's a specific stock Ryu has in mind, slowly calming himself down while deciding to place his faith in him this one time. While Ryu totally gets why Ryu-wan's freaking out, he also knows those past lives weren't just for show and feels fully confident about the company he's getting ready to bet on. That company happens to be Chunma Consulting Stocks, which already handles a ridiculous total of 900 billion won. Even though it might look like an average company at the moment, Ryu knows it's going to blow up in a big way once the 4th round starts kicking in. So, he doesn't hesitate at all when it comes to throwing everything he's got into it.